Welcome back to the 49ers Live Looking. It is Wednesday, August 26th. We are in the thick of training camp, and I am joined by 49ers Vice President of Player Personnel, Mr. Martin Mayhew. Martin, like I just said, we're in the thick of this. How's training camp treating you so far?
You know, it's been different, obviously, with the COVID-19 restrictions and whatnot, but it's been a typical training camp. I mean, guys are working their butt off. Coaches out there coaching. Our players are getting better. And it's really one of the more exciting times of the year for me to watch these guys prepare.
We had Adam Peters on the show earlier this week, and we were talking a little bit about how this offseason has changed a lot for you guys. How have your guys' jobs both complement each other, both you and Adam?
Yeah, well, it's been great working with Adam. It's our fourth year together. I think things are really starting to click for us a little bit. And we've been working really well together. He's a great evaluator, very good at evaluating talent. Obviously trained very well from being in New England and Denver. And he brings that to the table. I think he does a really good job organizing our scouts on the road for college stuff, as well as managing our pro department. I kind of get in where I fit on the evaluations. As far as college, I'll do some of the top guys. I usually have a position that I will cross-check. And then also we'll have several schools that I'm assigned to. On the pro side, I do a lot of the pro guys for free agency and a lot of day-to-day stuff with the pro department as far as the workouts and roster management and that kind of thing. So I think we complement each other really well. You know, I bring the experience as a former GM to the table, and Adam brings a lot to the table as well. And I think we're going into our fourth year. I think it's been pretty solid, and looking forward to working with him for a while.
So as you guys can see, practice going on behind us. We got the guys on the closer field, so hopefully we can get you guys a better view of what's going on. But with that, we're going to get the camera off of us, and we'll let you guys take a look at what's going on. And we'll have some talks a little bit about some players and what's going on. But really briefly, I know there have been a couple of questions, and I'll start over here. Starting with Brandon Ayuk. You know, a lot of people have been asking about that. Kyle Shanahan revealed he suffered a mild hamstring strain, so he'll be week to week. Nick Bosa was also a non-participant yesterday. He suffered a muscle strain. He'll also be week to week. It's likely both Ayuk and Bosa will miss the remainder of camp. That just goes through this week. D Ford, he's dealing with calf irritation. He's day-to-day. And then also some encouraging news. Deebo Samuel, I know a lot of people have been asking about him. When is he going to return? Will he be ready by week one? Kyle Shanahan hopeful to get the second-year wide receiver back by the season opener, which is just over 2 weeks away. Hoping to get him back by week one. He's not counting on it, but he is hopeful for that time frame right there. So just a couple of updates on the health front with some of the 49ers. But Martin, let's get back more into your job, what you do, your evaluation process. With the changes this offseason and given your role with the team, how have you had to kind of adapt with the effects of COVID and your evaluation process of guys?
Yeah, well, it really has changed our offseason up. You know, typically, you know, the thing I like about my job is that it's not the same day to day, but it is sort of the same annually, sort of month to month. So, you know, in January, you know, you're talking about the playoffs, you're talking about, you know, Senior Bowl, All-Star games. February, typically, you'll be dealing with the combine and maybe some free agency meetings. You know, March, the league year starts, you have free agency in March. April, you got your draft meetings, you know, and you got your draft in April. And you're getting the OTAs and mini camp in May. So I'm used to that kind of setup. And this year, obviously, threw a lot of that out of whack. So it's been totally different. But I think the key thing is going to be just, you know, any NFL team right now is dealing with, they have to be able to adapt and adjust to changes that happen. And we're getting new rules in. You know, every week there's something that changes. So it has changed quite a bit. I think the real challenge is going to be for these players who don't have, especially some of the young guys who don't have a mini camp. They don't have OTAs. Right. They don't have preseason games. So it makes the evaluation process a little bit more difficult because you can't see that steady improvement in a young guy. So I think of guys that will their way onto this team, like Ross Dwelly, like Kendrick Bourne, like Eman Mosley. It would be a lot harder for those guys this year when you don't have the preseason games to evaluate those guys and you don't see them continually build throughout the mini camps, throughout the entire offseason. So definitely some challenges. I think the team that's going to do the best this year is going to be the team that's the most resilient, and whoever can adapt to the changes the best. You know, whoever gets the championship, it may not be the most talented team, or, you know, it may not be the team with the best coaching staff or whatever, but the ability to adapt and adjust is going to be key this year.
I love that. You're hearing a lot of guys say that, and it's definitely true. This is an unprecedented time that we're all in, and just got to think about these guys and how they're having to adapt to all these changes on the field and rules and regulations. You even look at fans in the stadium. It's completely different. But I want to talk about the draft process. Usually the college players, they have their pro days, they have their visits with teams, but all of that was canceled due to COVID. How did you guys manage that process?
Yeah, it was a really different process this year for the most part. As far as the visits and being able to sit down and talk with the 30 guys that we were able to bring in, that was all canceled. That was a challenge. I'm glad we had the combine. The combine was sort of the last official thing that we did. And we're able to get obviously all the measurables and things that came from that, but also able to interview quite a few players during that process. So that worked out well for us. But yeah, it was different. The draft meetings, we did them all virtually, which I hadn't done a lot of virtual meetings in the past. So a little bit nervous, but it worked out well. We didn't have too many glitches. It worked well for us. It was a very efficient process, I thought. And I think we made some really good decisions in the draft, and we acquired some players that are going to be really helpful for us this season.
We'll talk about those players in just a bit, but you brought up the combine. Usually, again, you have those pro days, you have those visits, but how much value is there at the combine when you guys get to meet with some of those guys, see some of these guys' measurables? How much can you take away from that?
Yeah, there's a lot to be learned, a lot to be gleaned from that. I mean, a lot of times you're getting character reports from area scouts, but until you actually sit down and talk with the guy, and you have guys that have situations that come up, when you hear them actually explain what happened and why things happen to them, sometimes it solidifies a situation where you feel like, hey, I can trust this guy. And other times it gives you the knowledge to say, hey, I'm not sure I can trust this guy. So sitting down with those guys in those settings is really important as far as really getting to know them and who they are as people, not just what you see on tape.
So what about this season? It's going to be different, not only in the NFL, but also college ball, some conferences canceling games. How do you assess collegiate talent that has been affected by the pandemic?
Well, there's going to be a lot to adjust to there, as I mentioned before, because we still don't even know all the rules or exactly who's playing, who's not playing. I think for guys that have already declared they're not going to play this fall and that they've declared for the draft they're not playing in the spring, we're going to have to rely on 2019 film for those guys and work on getting their measurables. I'm not sure how we're going to manage that process. For teams that are planning to play in the winter and in the spring, we've got to adjust our calendar because I don't know how we're not going to be able to have the combine in February for those guys if they're actually playing games at that time. So
right.
I don't really want to speculate because I don't know what's going to happen. But whatever happens, I think we're going to be ready, and every team's going to be in the same boat. All 32 teams will be in the same boat as far as making those decisions. So it'll be a level playing field, but there are going to be some challenges there.
I think we'll all be we're all getting new rules and new updates each day, so we're just all having to become accustomed to it. That's just what this is right now. But in case you just tuned in, we're joined by the 49ers Vice President of Player Personnel, Martin Mayhew, here for the 49ers Live Looking. Martin, we're one of the few black general managers in the NFL during your time with the Lions. And I know over the last, few months, that's been talked about a lot, minority GMs, minority coaches, giving them opportunities in the NFL. You were actually a part, if I'm not mistaken, not too long ago, there was a conference with minority coaches and getting them. It was kind of like it felt like it was like networking, talking
right.
them and grooming them to become a part of this group. But how do you foresee that changing in the future?
Yeah, well, I think clearly it's not a good optic. The numbers aren't good. I think everybody sees that. I can tell you this, just from my conversation with people at the league office, that the league office is really committed, totally committed to making some changes there and to seeing some growth in that area. I was encouraged by the Washington football team's hiring of Jason Wright. I don't know Jason, but I was encouraged by seeing that happen. I think there's some positive things coming. I think it's just, the league office is committed. It's going to take the owners' individual commitments to their individual hires to see that change. I'm on the Bill Walsh Advisory Committee for the league, and we had a meeting at the Combine last year, and they did a study on all the previous GMs, and what they found out was every previous black GM had a tie to that organization from the past or a tie to a key decision maker who was making the hire. And what they gleaned from that was that the familiarity and comfort level with black executives is the thing that needs to happen more. Like take myself for example. I was in Detroit for 8 years before I was named GM. Take a guy like Ozzie Newsome. He was the Cleveland Browns and then to Baltimore. His whole career there as a player and as an executive. Jerry Reese was an area scout with the Giants before he became GM. Across the board, those connections were there for every single one. And maybe they knew the head coach, who was head coach. Maybe they knew somebody on the owners committee that was helping him hire. But there's a connection every single time. So I don't know the answer to how we create those connections, but I think that is something that's really missing right now. We got to find a way to make that happen.
Yeah. You brought up your time with the Giants or with the Lions, but I want to talk about your extensive background from being a former NFL cornerback. You have a law degree, right?
Correct.
Law degree. You're a director of football operations with the Giants, a former NFL GM. I mean, you have a very nice and polished resume right there. But how does your background, your experience in the league, as a player and as an exec, how does that assist in your current role? And also, I want to talk about how does that help with your relationship with John and Kyle and their day-to-day duties as well? Yeah,
well, I carry that with me everywhere I go. I mean, we're all the product of our experiences, and so that's part of who I am as a person, really. As a player, I've experienced what these guys are experiencing right now. I've gone out and committed and competed for an opportunity to make a team. I've competed for, a role on a team. I know what it's like to do that, As far as the front office, I've done pretty much every job that there is, From my time in Detroit, I was a travel guy, so I was doing what Steve Risser and
we
those
just
guys
had
do.
Riss on the show yesterday.
Yeah, I was doing that back in the day. At one point, I was VP of Legal Affairs, I was like the general counsel there. At one point, I did player engagement. I've negotiated big contracts. I've run free agency meetings. I've drafted players. So I've done pretty much everything you can do there. Wow. And it makes me well-rounded, and I think that's one reason why John wanted to bring me here. I think because my experience across different areas, I think can help him to be a better GM.
Back in 2017, John Lynch had no front office experience. He relied on you a lot. That's what he was saying. He was like, I have somebody, and like you said, very well-rounded, worked multiple areas around the front office, but you both played together in Tampa as well. Not sure if everybody knows that, but tell me a little bit about the dynamic of your relationship with John Lynch. Yeah,
well, John is just the most genuine person, one of the most genuine persons I've ever met. Just an incredible guy, and who he was as a player is very similar to who he is as an executive. One, he was selfless. He put other people in front of him. He wasn't concerned about who got credit for what. He's just a winner who wants to win, and that's the most important thing to him. The other thing about him as a player that people don't know, this guy was a very cerebral player. He had all the ability in the world, but the mental part of the game came very easy to him. People forget that he was a quarterback at Stanford, so he knew Bill Walsh's offense. There literally were times in games when a quarterback would come up and make a check, and John would tell me what the play was before it actually happened. So that's how good he was at that. The guy is super smart, and he's super smart as a GM as well. The thing that I've said this before, John brought me here to help him. I have learned so much from the opportunity to work with him. He really has helped me, I think, to be a better GM or better executive in the future. He's a great communicator. He involves everybody, and he lets everybody know that their contribution is important, And I think everybody feels that when they're around John. So I can't say enough good things about him as a person and as a GM. One of the best I've been around. I had the opportunity to work with Jerry Reese as well. And I can tell you, working with those two guys has really helped me grow as an executive.
I remember I was on Twitter and someone posted a highlight clip of John Lynch's best hits. How would that fly in the NFL today?
Well, what's funny, like back then, those were highlights, and they sold these, back then, I remember the VHS, cassettes or whatever. They would sell those hits, and then they started finding us while they were still selling them, and it was like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. So now they're finding us and not selling them. But yeah, John has some big ones now. He would light you up, He was known for that. People knew who he was, and we didn't have to worry about guys going across the middle too much when John was back there. A very physical player, enjoy watching him, enjoy playing with him.
You pick up any traits from him that you remember as a player that you see as a GM?
Well, one, like I said, his intelligence, his football intelligence is off the chart. The guy's very knowledgeable about the game, both sides of the ball. You see guys as GMs, and really it kind of reflects usually their background. If they're like, I was a defensive back, so I'm really keyed into defensive back play, receiver play. I like pass rushers because I was defensive back for that reason, I think John has it across the board on both sides of the ball, offense, defense, offensive line, defensive line, has a great understanding of every position. And his ability, I think, as a commentator to travel around and talk to some of the great coaches in this business really has benefited him in this role,
So as you guys are looking out, you see practice going on. We have the guys spread across both fields. So, Martin, I want to ask you, is there a position group that, as we're looking out at the field, that you focus on when you come out here to training camp practices?
Yeah, you know what? I see them all. I really do. But the one I've really have enjoyed watching so far this training camp is the offensive line, we lost 2 key veterans there, and you don't know how that's going to look when you try to replace guys like the guys that we lost. And starting with Mike Person, at right guard. This is a pro's pro. Guy that does everything right. Guy that maximizes his ability. He played at a very high level for us over the last couple of years at right guard and brought a lot to the table. So you wonder what that's going to look like when we don't have a guy like Mike Person. Well, watching Tom Compton and watching Dan Brunskill in there competing for that spot, I feel very comfortable with both of those guys at this point. Compton obviously has experience in this offense from being with Kyle in Washington. And then Brunskill did a great job filling in for us last year due to injury. Yeah. We never missed a beat when he was on the field, so he was outstanding for us. So I'm excited about the right guard spot. It's early in the process, as you know, but I'm excited about the return so far and what I see. And then go to left tackle when you lose a guy like Joe Staley. And Joe was really the heart and soul of that offensive line, or really maybe heart and soul of the whole offense, really. Just the vocal leadership, the things he brought off the field. And then the consistent play year in, year out. If you go back and look like the last 10 years at left tackles, he's probably one of the most consistent left tackles that are playing at a very high level, Pro Bowl level every single year for the last 10 years. So you lose that guy, and how do you replace that, Well, we see how we replace it.
Right.
You can't replace it with a rookie. There's no rookie that can step into those shoes. Yeah. The ability to get Trent Williams was really a key acquisition for us this offseason, I think, and he has brought so much to the table. As a guy that's competed against him when he was playing in Washington, he's the freak athlete. Mm-hmm. A guy of that size shouldn't be able to move the way that he moves, right? But what you don't know until you watch him practice for a month is how much effort he puts into it and how hard he works and how much he loves the game and his passion for the game. You can see that when he's chasing guys 20 yards down the field to finish his blocks. This guy is really special, and he's brought a lot to our offensive line. And just to see him fit into what we're doing seamlessly it really gives me a really good feeling there. So, like I said, it's early in the process, and we don't play for another, 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm excited about the early returns and how things look on the offensive line right now.
It's so crazy to think, and this is talking more about Trent Williams, that he had a year off of football. And yes, it's just training camp. This is just practice. No, we haven't played any real live snaps. But it's crazy just to watch him having a year off of football and then watching him on the field. It's like he just hasn't stopped playing. It just seems so seamless. Are you seeing the same thing as you watch him on the field?
I am seeing it. There is no rust to be knocked off.
Yeah.
This guy looks like he was playing, last week. The guy is just a phenomenal athlete, first of all. Incredible athlete, first of all. But you just don't know who he is, the player and the person, until you're around him the way I've been able to be around him and watch him practice the last few weeks.
I want to talk about Javon Kinlaw and his transition to the pros, but someone that's not talked about enough is Laken Tomlinson. He was in Detroit while you were there, came to the 49ers back in 2017. Trent Williams was extremely complimentary of him. He was saying that he's helped him just as much as Nick Bosa helps him lining up across from him. So has the guy next to him. One of the most durable players. Only missed one game, I think, in the last 5 years, somewhere in between there. But talk about what you've seen out of Laken.
Well, Laken is exactly the guy who I thought he was when we drafted him. I felt great about him coming out of Duke. I thought he would be a great pro, and he's been that. What a lot of people don't know about Laken is that the struggles in Detroit were primarily because of us, because of our front office, and because of the organization, more so than what his ability was. The plan when we drafted Laken was to start Larry Warford and to start Manny Ramirez, who we also had. and then to work Laken into Manny's spot whenever Manny was, whenever Laken was ready. And what ended up happening was Larry got hurt during the preseason, and Laken was forced out there before he was ready. And to exacerbate, to make the situation worse, we fired Laken's offense coordinator and position coach 4 or 5 games into his rookie year. So that it made it tough for him to overcome some of that stuff that happened to him. And I'm just so pleased that we were able to get him in 2017 and get him here and kind of restart him. And he has been nothing but great and has gotten better every single year that he's been here. So he's got a great camp going so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this year.
So I'm not going to keep you too long, but I do want to know, is there someone from last year's rookie class that has a chance to maybe surprise you this season, or just somebody that you've been impressed with overall?
Oh, wow. From last year's rookie class.
Threw a curveball there.
Yeah. Well, you know what I really want to see, and this is probably not what you're expecting me to say, but when I look at what Nick did last year, man, that was like, it was so impressive. You wonder how he can top that. Yeah. And you think that if he can, you really, our defensive line is going to be incredible if he can play better than what he played last year. We get D rolling and D staying healthy and out there consistently on the field. And I think Armstead came into his own last year. I think the scheme that we brought in with Chris Kosaric really brought out the best in Eric Armstead. And you get Kinlaw going. I think the sky's the limit for our defensive line.
I talked to Nick Bosa over the summer, and I was saying, if we saw what he did in year 1, how much scarier can it get? Another year under Chris Kosaric, another year with this defensive line. I mean, I want to say the sky's the limit for a guy like Nick with so much talent. And then lining up against a guy like Trent Williams who's so elite. And I feel like, and I hate saying this saying over and over again, but iron sharpens iron, and it's true. It is so true.
It is so true. And I've seen that work in so many places that I've been, where you have an elite player. And because you have that elite player, he's making the players around him better. And I think you're going to see that. I think Nick is going to make Trent better, and I think that Trent is going to make Nick better. So I'm excited about what Nick's going to be able to do for us this year.
Definitely an exciting time. A lot going on, a lot of storylines here at 49ers training camp. But I know you have to get back to work. I can't keep too much of you and your time. Appreciate having you here for the live look, and make sure you guys stay locked in to 49ers.com for everything training camp. And we will see you guys back tomorrow for another live look-in.